we're not like.
You're not like what?
I was like, there's no countdown.
All right. Yeah, no countdowns on here. Welcome to Clozer Cult Podcast. I'm your host, Alma Merrill, and today I have my friend, Amy Asher. So Amy is, she's part of, she's created an organization called Single Minded. And we're going to talk a little bit about single-minded, what that means. It has a little bit to do with being single, right?
Yes.
And like going through that whole process of being single and going through a divorce or what's that?
The gauntlet.
The gauntlet, yeah. Tell me, well, first of all, you and I have known each other for quite a while. We've known each other for probably what? Maybe 10?
I was going to say
maybe?
10 years.
Probably 10 years. It's so funny. Most of the people I have on here are like 10 to 15 years of,
really?
that I've known.
Yeah, you
them.
don't realize too.
Yeah, it's wild. And I'm like, man, that goes by so fast.
It does.
But you went, just like kind of I did, we went through divorces, right? And we had these kind of changing of our mindsets. It really adjusted our brains and our life and changed the way that we operate our existence, right?
Totally. Change everything about your identity, your trajectory.
And along with that, you created kind of this, do you call it a project? What do you call it? Is it?
It's kind of a movement, honestly.
Okay. So, it's called Single Minded Movement,
no,
right?
it's just called Single Minded, but I had to label it a Single Minded Movement on Instagram because Single Minded was taken.
Oh, got you. Okay. Yeah. And so at being a movement, what is it kind of like, do you feel like you were kind of called to this process? Because I know oftentimes when we go through that tumultuous adjustment in life, which is divorce or a redefinement of our life or a correction of our direction, right?
Totally.
we like come across these like aha moments where, I have a purpose. I need to do something different because it snaps us out of the bullshit bullshit stories that we were living in for so many years, or that we were stuck in for so many years.
Right. Stuck in in one aspect, you realize you're kind of stuck and you are living this life that's kind of stagnant.
Right.
And until you break out of that and make the really difficult decision to break out and get a divorce because you don't know what life will look like on the other side.
Yes. And it's scary as hell, isn't it?
It's scary as hell. And I think that was the worst part of going through divorce is because this is the life I've known for 12 years.
Is that how long you were married? Was 12 years?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
So,
and then did you date that person for a while before that?
We live in Utah. What do you think?
Okay, so it was like 2 weeks and then you got married? Is that what it is?
It was 6 weeks of really good dating.
Oh my God. You effing kidding me?
Really getting to know this person. I was 19
Wait,
years
were you
old.
led by the Spirit to marry that person?
You know what? Here's the funny thing.
All right.
If we go back. So I was actually at the time I was Mormon and my young women's advisor had said, I want to set you up with this return missionary.
Uh-huh.
And here I am, I think it was right after I graduated and I was like, hell no, I don't want to date a return missionary. I'm not looking to get, married this young.
Right.
And anyway, so a few months go by and it just happened to be that we met up. That's a whole other story. We start dating. 6 weeks later, we get engaged. 6 months later, we get married.
Oh my gosh. This is so, okay. Just for you guys that don't know this culture, right? So the LDS culture, I grew up that way too. And it's a matter of you search the Spirit. If you feel good, you get married. Imagine all the people that would get married just based on how they feel with somebody at the moment, right? And I know so many people that have had that scenario where they're like, oh yeah, we only dated for 2 months. And it's like, wait, how long have you been married?
And at 19, because you don't know who you are or what kind of a life you really ultimately want to create at 19.
Right. Definitely.
Actually, was I was like 18. And then once we got engaged, I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so massive amount of time that you dated, 6 weeks.
I knew everything about this person, everything, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Right. Yeah. The traditions, exactly. There's so many things to identify. I always tell my my daughters, do what your mom did, because I'm married again.
Right.
Jennifer waited till she was 30 something to marry me.
And this is her first.
This is her first.
Smart.
She went, got a career, bought a house, traveled the world, did all kinds of amazing things. And then when she met me and had dated around a bunch of different dudes, then she was like, okay, cool. I'm down. I like this guy.
Smart.
He's super solid. He whatever. And actually at the time, emotionally, I was a fucking wreck. I mean, it was bad. And so she, for whatever reason, she saw something glamorous inside of me and was like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do this.
I'll do that.
Yep. And then she followed me around and stalked me. And it's a whole nother story.
No, but I have to say that is what I preach to my daughters. They're 25 and 21. And I preach to them, get to have your own life first. Make a bunch of mistakes.
Be an individual.
Be an individual. Finish your education. Start a career. Buy a home. Figure out who you are. Travel the world. Do those things as an individual. Figure out who you are. And maybe marriage isn't right for you.
Right. Yeah. Some people, it's not right. It's not in the cards. And,
right.
And that's okay. Right. We just have a culture that says, oh, you need to go have this or go do this in order to have happiness or a full life. Yeah.
Right.
Which is,
there's this blueprint that, whether it's, social or cultural or religious, there's this blueprint that is there and nobody really talks about why it's there and even dissects it. But this is just your pathway to a happy life.
Case in point, right? Are you happier now than you were when you were married to this individual?
1,000 times happier.
So then the marriage wasn't what brought you the happiness, right?
No, I mean, it in some aspects, yes, it did. Having kids absolutely brought me happiness. But what happened is I completely lost sense of who I was at my core.
Which, how often does that happen?
I think more often than we think.
Yeah. Because it's not just that, the Mormon culture or the Utah culture that we live in. There's so many other cultures that have that same experience, right? There's so many other cultures that feel like there's like a method to the process, right?
For sure.
like, oh, okay, you get this old, you get married, you go get a career, you go get a job, whatever. And I'm like, dude, I didn't do any of that crap that way, and finding happiness had nothing to do with those methods.
Totally. Because I think a lot of people get right in step with following that plan and then they internalize it and go, why the hell am I not happy?
Yes.
Why the hell do I feel unfulfilled? And
yes.
Sorry, I hope I can swear on this because that will be
happening. You can. You can fucking swear. You can say you can say whatever you want. Good. I always have to break it for people.
No censoring.
They're like, are we okay? Yeah, no, fucking just do it. All right. Just
fuck yes.
My dad hits me up and I love you, Dad, by the way. And he goes, son, there's quite a bit of profanity on your podcast. I'm all, Dad, we're dealing with like people's real life shit.
Right.
Like,
you want people to be transparent.
Right. And I want them to go as deep as they possibly can in order to help other people. And I said, sometimes that has to do with swear words. And he goes,
it does.
I said, it doesn't mean that's necessarily profane or that it's or he said it's vulgar. Right. And I said, there's a difference between profanity and vulgarity. Right.
Absolutely.
Vulgarity is you're trying to make it dirty or something. Profanity is it's an expression.
They're sentence enhancers.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Tony Robbins talks about that a lot.
Yeah.
He's like, listen, sometimes you have to get the word of, whatever across, and sometimes it takes an F-bomb. So
totally does. You have to feel that emotion.
Yeah. So feel free. Yes.
Okay.
So, so back to kind of your previous experience. What kind of led you to the single-minded thing? So you got married, you were unhappy, you felt like you weren't really living your purpose, which a lot of people feel that way. And a ton of people are in that scenario. What did you do next? And how did it help you to kind of get to where you're at now?
So going through my divorce, there were so many things about my marriage that I ignored. I ignored red flags. I ignored my need to be individual and authentic.
Okay.
So as I'm going through the divorce, I'm uncovering more things about my ex-husband that I had no idea about.
Right. So you're learning actually who he is, right?
Oh, totally.
Because you don't know who he is after 6 weeks, right?
Here's what's scary is, and we won't go too far down this rabbit hole, but sleeping next to someone every night for 12 years, you think you know them.
Yes.
And you don't. And that was really eye-opening for me. So going through my divorce and getting out on the other side, I thought I was just going to kind of, get back into dating, possibly get remarried. Like my goal was honestly to get remarried within a year.
Okay.
And
which was also culturally enhanced, right?
Completely.
If I get a divorce, in order to be better and in order to be whole, I got to go get married again.
Right. Because I can remember the first time I took my kids out, we went to the movie Coraline and down in Lehigh, theater full of families. And I felt like such a reject.
Right.
Because I'm there as a single mom. And yeah, it's really interesting.
Instead of being a powerful, person to be reckoned with, instead of living in your power as a single mother and handling these kids, you felt like a reject because of how it the environment that you were in.
Yeah, because everybody around you seems like a, happy family, and I'm there alone with my kids. Anyways, so,
and a little bit hurt, right? Because you feel a little bit bruised when you go experience those emotions with your kids and not your husband.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. So I get through the divorce. I'm finding out, uncovering more lies. I am, when I thought I had gone through the roughest part of my post-divorce life, I was actually just in the beginning stages of it.
Interesting.
So it was a couple of years of pure hell, of adjusting, finding things out. I gained full custody of my kids. And, I thought I was going to recover and heal much sooner than I actually was. It took me, and that's where I started every single morning.
Which is only an indication of the fact that you loved deeply, right? Because when we love deep, the deeper we are as lovers, as humans, the harder it is to get through.
It is. And it wasn't just a deep love, but it was a deep trust that had been broken. And finding out that basically my whole marriage was a lie. And excuse me, it was so eye-opening and actually good in so many ways because it, excuse me,
right.
Getting over a cold.
Feel free to grab that water if you need.
Yeah, I think I will. So it actually opened my eyes to me learning so much more about myself and my own issues and actually trying to heal certain things from childhood that I think had compounded what I was going through at the time.
And tell me this, remind me, you said you were, what did you say when you were 19 when you got married?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. So coming out of that, going through everything that I did, I was such a mess at the time and didn't know how messy I was. But I was starting, going through dating and thinking a relationship will cure this.
Right.
Going from person to person. Oh, I just haven't met the right person because a relationship is going to cure this. A relationship is going to help me to heal and to get past that hurt and all of these things.
Which actually, if the relationship is with yourself.
Bingo. That's why I turned this around. So I started listening to Tony Robbins and, Oprah and Les Brown and just absorbing everything I could get my hands on, whether it was books, podcasts, interviews, speeches. That is how I started off my day every single morning. So I did this for years because at the time I couldn't afford a therapist.
Now, guys, remember, of all the successful people that I have on here, this is a common thread. Like, listen to those that have gone before you, people whose lives you want to model. Fill your heads with their content first thing in the morning, right?
Totally. I mean, I was a student at that time. I just made myself completely vulnerable and absorbed everything I could and could not read enough. I was just very actively at it. And in going through that, like I said, I couldn't afford therapy at the time, but in going through that, my eyes just were so open to things that I had ignored and suppressed.
Right. And let's talk, if you're okay to go a little deeper in that.
For sure.
Share with me a little bit about what you kind of ignored and suppressed while you were married also when you were in kind of that relationship with the religion that you were in? Because I don't mind going a little deeper with that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind at all. So to go back even further, I was raised by a very toxic, narcissistic, and I do not use that term lightly, narcissistic mother.
Okay.
And so coming from that background, coming from a highly, high demand, highly religious background.
And then mix that with narcissism. It's kind of a little bit of an emotional bomb, right?
It is, because you don't have any sort of identity of who you really are at your core. You're told who you are. And my mom, I was an extension of who she was. I wasn't an individual child. So I was this extension.
Whoa, that's pretty fucking deep.
Yeah, I found this out by reading.
Okay.
It's amazing what you can uncover. And just a side note, if anybody wants to know more about the 16 personality disorders and narcissistic personality disorder, go to Dr. Romney. She's on YouTube. She's on TikTok. Amazing insight.
Okay. So Dr. Romney?
Dr. Romney.
Okay. Not Romney. All right. No
Not
relation.
Romney.
No relation. Dr. Romney.
Romney. Yes.
Romney.
So you have to go back to that point to understand what went wrong in my marriage and why I chose this person. Because I'll say this too, as much as he did things wrong in our marriage, I played a role in that. I chose that person.
Mm-hmm.
I connected to that person. I allowed things to happen within my marriage that I shouldn't have.
Right.
And to be completely candid, a year after we got married, I found myself in the middle of the night getting up, walking down my stairs, bawling my eyes out because I knew I had made a huge mistake.
So there is some accountability for your choices, obviously.
Yeah.
And so after when you came to that conclusion that night and you had that epiphany, what happened next? What brought you kind of to that point where you went, I'm done. This is not the right direction for me.
Yeah, that's where
being able to say it's okay to be done and this isn't the right direction for me.
That's where the church came in. When I had those feelings that night, I just remember that spiritual side taking over. Actually, I didn't even want to call it a spiritual side. That religious side
perspective.
Yeah, that kicked in. And I had this temple marriage. I was locked in. We had a baby on the way, and that's not even an option.
Right. How do you even confront that? You've been married in the temple for what you believe is eternally, right? You have a child in the womb, which needs a mom and a dad, right? And love.
Right.
And so the idea that this is a bad decision, I need to get out of this, is a tough one to make.
Absolutely. So I hung in there, and we had, 2 more kids after that. And then once it got to that 11th year, I knew I could not do this anymore. I was done. And
now, had you guys you guys had just kind of, you were in an environment that you just felt like withdrawn, or was it like immediate issues?
Well, throughout the marriage, as any couple that gets married really young,
mm-hmm.
they either start to kind of drift apart and go different directions when you go through your 20s, or, you kind of come together.
Right.
And
you become stronger.
Right.
Sometimes. Yeah,
right.
sometimes.
Especially with having kids and all that. But I felt myself, we were pretty opposite to start off with. We had some connection, but then he kind of went this direction. I went this direction. And about 11 years into it, I start opening my eyes and uncovering things and realizing I have no idea who I'm actually married to.
And because we have these thoughts that, okay, we can make it work, right? With God and the two of us together, we can make it work. But then if you just wipe it clean and you look at where you're at currently and what your life is like now, and if you wiped it clean and blank and went to that life and said, would I choose it? And would I do it? Would I marry this person? Would I put myself from zero into that scenario and be happy? Sometimes that's not the answer, right? or the answer is a clear no.
Yeah. So, like I said, 11 years into it, I'm feeling like I cannot do this anymore. And just as I was about to call it quits, his mom, who he's very, very close with, came over to our house and told us that she had breast cancer.
Ouch.
And so I thought, okay, that's my sign that I need to lock into this, until she gets better, because I'm not going to just dump all of this.
And were you very, very close to his mom because you had kind of a little tumultuous relationship with your mom, or?
Yeah, that was part of it. She was a great lady.
Because I had a really kind of a dark relationship with my mom before she passed. Actually, from about age probably 5 on was not good. Maybe 6 on was not good. And I remember latching on to other women that were good, that I would call my mom, and I would be, I would regard them as a mother, in my life.
Yeah. We were really close too. And so I didn't want to put her through, this pending divorce. I didn't want to put him through it at this time. So I thought, you know what, it's okay, because this will give me some time to really make these considerations.
Right. And really look at it from another perspective.
Yeah.
So I look at everything now in different boxes, right? I look at it like when I left the Mormon church, it was a really difficult thing for me. But the way I did it was I said, okay, I'm going to turn off all of my perceptions of what it is, what I was told, how I learned all this, and go to 0, make the whole board white. And then I'm going to look at it for what I learned from the outside and ask myself, is that the direction that's right for me?
Yeah.
Is that the correct direction for me? And when it was a no, it was a resounding no.
Yes.
And I had to make a very strong decision.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, I think, sometimes in our relationships, is that, and it was for my same thing I did with my past relationship. I went, okay, if I was looking at it from the outside, would I choose this?
Yeah.
And come into it now and live this relationship? If it's a no, I'm either going to try to really repair the relationship, or I'm going to walk. And I ended up just walking,
Yeah, because I thought, if I get to that point, there is no looking back. If that light switch turns off, it's not coming back on.
Right. It's over.
It's over. It's done. I feel very good about my decision.
And what brought you to that point? You went, okay, was it that night? Was it the night or was there a moment? Because I can tell you the moment that I was like, no,
I'm
done.
Really?
Yep, there was a moment.
What was that moment for you?
So the moment for me was we had a family reunion at our house, and we were driving up to Bear Lake for our family reunion. And my ex freaked out and started punching me while we were driving. And our 2 little ones were in the back seat. My brother's following us in his car up the freeway. And she punches me multiple times. She's so mad at me that I said my brother could stay at our house because I didn't clear it with her, right?
Oh my gosh.
So she starts punching the shit out of it. She hated my brother. This is a different brother that's following me. She starts punching me, and I swerve the car to kind of get away from her. The car swerves on the freeway. My brother's behind us, calls me on the phone. He's like, hey, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, we're going to turn around. We got some stuff we got to fix. And so we turn around and I go back to the house, and I said, you are calling your doctor. Now, this is her OBGYN. She didn't have a psychoanalytic doctor on any level, but this guy was old school. He was an older dude, had tons of experience. So she calls him and sets up an appointment. He calls me that night, and he goes, listen to me. She's never going to change. If you want your life to be different, you have to make that change.
Wow.
And I was like, he said, in my X amount of years practice, I very seldom ever tell people this. And he said, and I am not a psychologist, but he said, she will never change. And so if you don't make the change, your life will continue to be the way that it is, because she has a condition and it's not curable. And I was like,
and then you think, can I live with that?
Can I live with that? Yep. And that was it. I said, nope.
You tapped out.
I can show you the place I was standing when I made that decision up at the KOA campground in Bear Lake, And I remember just going, that's it. I'm done. It's over. And then I had a dear friend who went through a divorce. Actually, it was my brother. He said, make sure you record every conversation you have with her from here on out.
Wow.
And so when I told her that I was going to divorce her, that I was done, I have it all on film, and it's wild, her reaction. It is wild as fuck. And I won't ever share it with public, but it is wild how she reacted to that. And she just went ape shit on me. And it was just, to me, it was a testament of
that confirmation.
This is the right thing. And I'm glad I made this decision. Because it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. This sucks. I wish we could work it out. It was like, you motherfucker, I'm going to fucking kill you. And I'm going to put you in a handbag. And your dad is, blah, 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 blah. I mean, and then so it was
good for you for not allowing it, because a lot of people, men or women, allow it. They excuse it. They move on.
Well, I allowed it for years though,
Did you?
I mean, don't we like have these, like, we try to pretend that it's not happening, or we pretend, and my parents' relationship was not a good example of what a relationship needs to be. So it was, my dad was subservient. My mom ruled the roost. She said what goes. And she was extremely neglectful and extremely abusive.
Oh, geez.
So, and extremely strung out on prescription medications, on opioids. So
it's a tough childhood.
It's a tough one. So tell me this, like you're because single-minded, and I've watched a ton of your content online. Yeah. I mean, it's, you go through these different topics, right? You go through, you're kind of have these topical like reels and stuff on there. Well, ideally, what do you want to see that be for you? Or what do you want to see that be eventually?
So the reason why I discuss so many topics is because, well, first of all, I don't have a psychology degree, and that's actually what I started going back, to school for, was psychology. But I thought, while I can't teach from a place of education, I can teach from a place of my background and my experiences.
Your experience, right? Yeah. Tony Robbins says he's a practical psychologist. He
exactly.
doesn't have a psychologist degree. He's just he's like, I know bullshit when I see it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which I think, it's one thing to read about it in a book, but it's a whole other thing to experience it and, travel through it and heal from it.
And actually live it.
Yeah.
Right.
So the reason why I kind of cover so many topics is because, and the whole reason for single-minded is you have a lot of different platforms that cater to bettering relationships with others. And, and then some that talk about dating and marriage therapy and all of that. But what you don't have, and I think is so vital to even having any of those outer, exterior relationships, is building a solid relationship with yourself first. I think that gets overlooked more than anything.
I call it self-rapport,
Yeah.
Like, you're in the real estate industry, I'm in the real estate industry, and they always talk about building fantastic rapport with people, building relationships of trust. And I think you have to do that with yourself first.
You do.
You have to be whole first before you can wholly give yourself to someone else.
Yeah. In fact, right on that, I was listening to Matthew Hussey one day talk about, someone had gone through a relationship where they were lied to, and coming out of it, how do you learn to trust again?
Right.
And he had such a great answer. He said it's we're flawed as humans as far as trying to pick up on lies. We don't do as good of a job as we think we do. What we need to focus on is being able to trust ourselves. Trust yourself. Don't gaslight yourself. Trust your own intuition. Trust that you have what it takes to, like you said, build rapport and learn how, what doesn't feel right, what does feel right, because you can't trust everybody out there, but you need to really learn to trust yourself.
I agree with that. Tony Robbins talks about, he always brings you to you, the real you.
Yeah.
You know how he says that? The real you. And I think everything that we need for a good, solid relationship is already within us.
Yes.
We just need to find the real us. And oftentimes when we're in negative or toxic relationships, including family relationships with your extended family or your siblings or your parents, you lose yourself in the processes of growth and you're unable to be whole. And when I say whole, I don't mean not broken, because all of us are broken as fuck, right? But I mean whole in the sense that I can be alone and be okay. And I can perform without the expectation or the companionship of somebody on my arm or supporting me on that level, right?
Yeah.
So, because when Jennifer and I first started dating, we were of the same mindset, and we kind of came to this conclusion like, okay, if this is going to last, we individually need to be okay together.
Right.
We individually need to be okay. You know, I have this T-shirt. It says I'm co-independent. It's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. And it's got a picture. It's a Converse shirt, and it's got this picture of this guy and this girl that says co-independent on it. And it's like, we're both independent. We're both, run our own show, but we're together because we choose to be, two individuals that are whole, but they're together because they choose each other.
Yes. That's funny you should mention that, because in 2018, I got out of a relationship, and whenever I get out of a relationship, I take time. I take time to reflect, like, what did I learn from that relationship? What did it teach me about me?
Right.
And what are some flaws that I still have, or some things that I haven't healed? So in looking at that relationship and kind of examining things, and then looking at prior relationships to that, I had this light bulb moment of, why do I keep choosing guys that are so needy? I hate needy. I hate being choked. And so I got this book on codependency, because I thought, why do I keep choosing these codependent men?
Right.
Duh. Because you are the other half of that equation.
Right.
You are, it takes two to tango. It takes two to be codependent. And I had no idea that I was codependent.
Codependent people are really good being codependent together.
Yes.
Just putting it very simply, like.
And neither one realizes it.
Right. Exactly. It is fascinating. And then that's where all the blame comes in, and you're this way. No, you're that way.
Totally.
Or no. And then you mirror each other, or you do things that are, I found myself when I was in my previous relationship, like accusing her of things that I myself did.
Yeah.
And I saw her do the same thing to me. She would accuse me of doing things. Like, she was adamant that I was cheating on her. Adamant. And I was laser focused on that relationship. I never cheated once, not even a little bit. And when it was all over and we divorced and everything was down, I was able to get into both of our emails. We weren't divorced yet. We were still separating, because this is a couple months in. And I got into her email. Don't tell the authorities, all right? And I went through her email, and I found that she had been carrying on an emotional relationship with her ex-boyfriend from high school for years. Years.
Oh.
And it was all, they were just each other's dumping point. They would dump shit on each other. And, when she's talking about me, he's such a this, he's such a that, he does this and that, and he's so this, whatever. It was her, like, way to just talk shit about me. And it was his way to talk shit about the girls he was dating. He was not married. He hadn't ever been married. And so, But they were carrying on this relationship for years. And it, when I came to that, like, understanding, I was really shattered. Like, because I was like, man, all the things you told me that I did, you were actually, in fact, doing.
They were just projections.
Yeah, they were just projections. Yeah.
Interesting.
So tell me this. Let's say I'm a married woman. I am miserable. I am stressed out all the time. And now this happens a lot when you're just a mom, right?
Yeah.
What is it inside of you that goes, I need to end this relationship. I need to end this marriage. It's not okay.
Well, that's so complex, but I've been there. And I think for me, it kind of gets to this point of, how much more are you willing to take? And for me, it was lies. How many more lies are you willing to take? And the other side of that was, how much longer do you not want to be your authentic self? Because you are strapped into this, and within this marriage, you are not able to be your authentic self.
because you can choose this shit as long as you want, right?
Totally.
Like you can hang out.
Keep this car running down the road.
Yeah, as long as you want.
Right.
You can choose to be miserable for as long as you want, right?
For sure.
So when does it get to that point where you just go, okay, shit, I'm done? Or is it individual? Is it?
It's definitely individual. For me, towards the end of it, like I said, at that 11-year mark, I was so done. Honestly, I had been done at multiple points in my marriage, but because of my religion and other things and the fear of not knowing what was on the other side of this, excuse me,
you just got over that cold, huh?
It kept me sunk into that. It was so scary not knowing what my life was going to look like outside of this that it just kept me in. And so I think you get to this point where you just know. You know it's not working. And I don't ever want to say, oh, the grass is greener, bull crap. I think that there are some relationships out there that teach you a lot. I don't think they're supposed to be everlasting.
Yeah.
I think there are expiration dates on a lot of relationships out there. And you know what? That's okay.
Yeah. I think that's
Perfectly
okay too.
Okay.
And I think this is where the religion gets confusing in here because people think, no, it's not supposed to expire.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be over.
Right.
But I believe that if there's a God, that divorce is ordained by God. Like it is a gift from the heavens above, because without it, I would be fucking miserable still.
Totally.
I would be miserable. It was the greatest gift to divorce and find this amazing person who I'm married to now, who I'm so thankful for.
I know. Like my friend always says, do you know why divorce is so expensive?
Why?
Because it's fucking worth it.
Oh, shit. You know what? My divorce wasn't very expensive. It's the fucking child custody that was expensive. It was worth it, but it was expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So with Single Mind, where can people find you for Single Minded?
I'm on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. So right now my attorney is working on the final stages of my trademarking and copywriting and everything. So I'm going to open that up to more spaces like YouTube. And that's actually primarily where I'll have all of my content. But for sure, TikTok right now, Instagram.
It would be a blast if you had a YouTube channel about this shit, where you could pull people in and have interviews and about relationships, what it's like to be single-minded, what it means to be single-minded, what it means to have self-rapport and self-love and build your, and grow your empire and grow your, your purpose.
Yeah, that's what I'm in the midst of doing. In fact, I've recorded a handful of interviews with men, women, with a group of men and women. It's been so much fun, but I just haven't launched it yet because I'm waiting. And
just so people know, she's a wildly successful real estate agent too. I just wanted to bring you on and talk about, we're always talking about real estate on here or investments or entrepreneurship, but I was like, every month I do a episode called Gray Matters, and Gray Matters is our sensitive topics. And so I want to make this a Gray Matters episode because I think this really is a sensitive topic. I think it's something that people they don't know where to start. Mm-hmm. I know I felt that way. Like I didn't know where to start because I thought this was supposed to last forever.
Yeah.
So for years, I just treated it like it was and tried to fix it and repair it and Band-Aid it for fucking ever. And it wouldn't change. And so I had to change it. And that was the scariest thing for me was saying, yes, I'm going to change this shit. And I'm going to get out of it and I'm going to go create who I really am and stop allowing this fucking bozo to hold me back. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Oh my gosh.
And let me ask you this really quickly. So obviously when you're faced with this, what was your biggest fear about getting out of it?
My number one fear was what would my family think?
Right.
Because I had convinced them that she was amazing. I had convinced myself that we matched perfectly. I had convinced them that we had this incredible life and we projected this incredible life together. So it was telling my family that I'm ending this thing. And when I did that, some of them were like, what? I thought you guys were doing great. I thought it was an amazing relationship. I was
like, no, it was actually a facade.
It was a facade. We were faking. It sucked. We fucking hated each other most of the time. Loved our children, hated the relationship, and could not come to a conclusion.
Yeah.
I couldn't remedy it. couldn't fix it.
But didn't you feel this huge sense of peace when you did call it quits?
It was amazing. Do you remember Jared Blank? Did you ever meet Jared
No.
Blank over the Everest brokerage we were at?
I don't think so.
So he was this guy, and he and I don't speak a lot now, but at that time he stepped in and he was a huge help for me in these moments. And I remember this moment with him when he took me over to my house because she like had my car repoed.
Oh no.
And so he took me over to my house and helped me get into my house and get some stuff out of my house. And I remember the moment getting back into his car and leaving. And that's when it hit me. That's when I felt free.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, this was right. This is
Yeah.
correct. I can't be in that space anymore, you know?
Well, and isn't it too, I felt at such peace, even though my life was in total upheaval at that moment.
Yeah.
There was a peace connected to it. Knowing you have made the right decision.
Absolutely.
And I don't care if I'm homeless, if I am struggling the rest of my life, it's better than being locked into something that doesn't feel good.
Without a doubt. I always told people I would rather be homeless and freaking living in a cardboard box than go back to that house and be the target when I walk in the door.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I hope that answers your question.
That.
I don't. All right. Freaking A. I think we could talk about this forever. And we ought to do another episode on just certain topics about this.
Yeah, I would love to.
Awesome. Amy Asher, everybody. Thank you for watching another episode and listening to another episode of Clozer Cult Podcast. Hit us up on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. We'll see you guys next time.